Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move, 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 move.
This episode of Choices Not Chances podcast is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop, located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. For more information, stay tuned at the end of this episode.
This is Choices Not Chances podcast with Ryan and Matt. I'm your co-host, Matthew Charette. Sitting next to me is Ryan Rogers. Ryan.
All right, hey everybody, thanks for coming back. We appreciate you coming, and as always, if you see something in this episode that you can take something away from it, if it's any kind of good gouge that you can walk away from, and there's somebody that you know to share it with, we ask you to do that. That's all we ask. Share it out there, get the information passed. So without further ado, we'll jump into it. A while ago, while recording with John Wayne Williams, I was introduced to a very humble man, a man who did not gloat about himself and his accomplishments, a man that until the end of that very night remained soft-spoken and almost with a California bro twang. There was something about men of war who have seen real combat that resonates in them, something identifiable instantly to those of us with similar pasts. It's in the eyes that seem to be far less innocent than they were in past days, to a past that most cannot explain or even empathize with. In the following days and conversations, I began to learn about this man I had met, and I was told he was somebody that needed to be on the show. I thought, what does it mean when somebody says that you need to be heard? To me, it means that person has something to offer the world, some bit of information that can add to, not take away from, current preparations. Close friends whom I trust recommended this man as a true leader of Marines and one of the best snipers that they'd ever served with. And his name is Alex Tryon. As it turns out, Alex was nominated to be the Scout Sniper of the Year by his parent command in 2019. And I will share some of his commendations from his command and the nomination letters, just to give everybody an idea of the type of person, the type of Marine, the type of leader that you're dealing with. It says here, this is from his commanding officer at the time to the members of the board. Sergeant Tryon has time and time again demonstrated his superior depth of knowledge in the skills and field craft associated with the sniper community. In addition to his impressive professional development and self-study, Sergeant Tryon spends hours continuing to refine his skills to teach those that are in his charge. He is a living embodiment that best teachers are first and foremost good students, and Sergeant Tryon never stops learning. Sergeant Tryon has significant operational experience, which is becoming increasingly rare these days. On multiple occasions during our most recent combat deployment, he was able to apply his years of training and practices when called upon, and the lethal results are best known by his adversaries. His combat abilities go well beyond the sniper community, though. He is an accomplished and proficient tactician in any environment with any weapon system, and has exhibited more mastery of the profession of arms than any of his peers that I have observed. He goes on and on. Another commendation, this time from his platoon sergeant, Dave Mortensen. Excuse me. Sergeant Tryon had many successful accomplishments in 2018. Our deployment to one of the most kinetic areas in Syria enabled him to apply his skill set and shine great light onto the scout sniper community. During our deployment, Sergeant Tryon was responsible for conducting 18 security and contact patrols, traveling over 1.2 clicks as a vehicle commander. Our Marines augmented the Special Forces Operation Detachment Alpha to forward mortar firing positions. Sergeant Tryon volunteered to go on every mission possible. He managed to conduct 9 operations totaling over 100 hours of recon and surveillance that provided targeting data for the Detachment Alpha team and plot enemy movement, ISIS command and control nodes, possible enemy positions, logistics hubs, and enemy headquarters. Additionally, He assisted by firing over 400 rounds of 81 millimeter mortars and 120 millimeter mortars, contributing to the 28 enemy killed in action and 18 enemy wounded in action achieved from our combined teams. During the last days in Syria, our patrol base received 250 rounds of accurate enemy indirect fire. Sergeant Tryon displayed courage by scanning his sector throughout the barrages. Through his devotion to duty, he was able to identify and kill an enemy forward observer with a Sasser at 1,400 meters from his position, who was attempting to escape on his motorcycle. The following day, the SV bid attempted to breach the ECP. Sergeant Tryon assisted in fixing that SV bid in place with a Sasser until a Javelin was able to destroy the vehicle. And that gives you an idea of the one and only Sergeant Alex Tryon, and he's here tonight to shed some knowledge out and kind of hang out and have a good time. So thanks for coming out, man. And that's a pretty impressive read-in and an impressive career. And I want to get to it, but we'll kind of start at the beginning. But thanks for coming out, man. I appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
absolutely. So to get to know how all of this was formed and this man we read about in award pages and commendations, how's it start? I like to go back to know, like, especially childhood. Just start there.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Ohio, Cortland. It's northeast, just on the Pennsylvania border. My mom and dad divorced, so I'm separated family, roundabouts when I was 7 years old. My mom worked really hard. I have, 3 other siblings. I'm an identical twin. I got my brother Chris, my 2 older sisters. Yeah, that was always fun. Like, being a twin was a crazy time. It was cool too. Different experience. We're polar opposites, but we get along.
Do you have the twin intuition?
Yeah, you can probably tell I'm doing something weird right now. I'll hear about it later.
You play tricks on your teachers and stuff?
Actually, yeah. There's always there's always contention, especially as we got older. We actually looked more similar. And I remember having classes back in the day. It was either back to back, or I'd have the same classes with him, and or he would have just had a class. I'd go in for one, and the teacher's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm here for history. You know what I mean?
Here to get some learning on.
Right. He's just I'm not having it. Cool, yeah, you're not the first kid coming here and tell me he's a twin. And then he sees my brother and he's just oh, so I am in the wrong here.
Did you guys purposely dressed in the same outfits and stuff to fuck with people?
I think it was a little cliche to do, but I think maybe when we were younger, since we were forced to do it so much, I think for us it lost the appeal. But maybe nowadays they'd be quite keen to messing with people in that sense.
What about hairdos and stuff?
Man, I can't say. I mean, come on.
Come on, did you ever trip your parents out? Did they ever mess it up?
My mom did admit for the longest time, for probably I probably could have been a year for all I know, but for almost the first at least 7 or 8 months, they left the wristbands on we were born in. So I think anything beyond that might have been cutting circulation off on my hand or something.
Yeah.
I'll figure these kids out. She always jokes. She's like, "There's plenty of times you kids fall out of the crib. It could be you could have got swapped." I was like, "What?" She's like, "We'd never know." I'm like, "Wow, cool. That's a great thought."
So my name might
be Chris. Yeah, this whole time living someone else's life my whole life and not know it.
I don't even know who I am anymore.
Right. Oh, constant.
I'm so lost.
It's a struggle.
All right, check. So you said you have an identical twin, and then how other siblings?
Yeah, I got 2 older sisters. One's 34, the other one's 32. They're both married. They, harvested children. So I got 5 nephews and one niece out of them, which they're all worth. Kids are great. So I get to hang out and see them all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So high school, were you at in high school?
In regards to
location wise, same place.
Same place, yeah. It was like Lakeview High School.
Okay.
It's right there in Cortland. I did Lakeview School District pretty much my entire life from like preschool on up.
Check.
It's pretty good trash there. I mean,
Pretty solid. No reason to leave
Yeah.
it. Did you play sports?
on and off. I was forced into baseball, which is why I have a contention with that now. But I enjoyed sports. It was still fun. The only thing I wasn't allowed to play was football. For some reason, my size, I didn't figure it out.
Yeah, look big
I was
enough
too
to play football to me.
That's what maybe in middle school now. But like size is like the biggest contention there. So I did a lot of track. I played basketball. I did soccer for a good bit too. Like anything to stay active. I liked it though. Sports were fun.
And hunting, fishing, anything like that?
I didn't get to hunt as nearly as much as I wanted to, but I probably spent every other day down at the lake with my buddy Joey and Justin. Like that was like our thing. Like I think I pack my rod and reel half the time. We just leave from school. Sometimes during lunch, like let's go fish. Like yeah, big. We live right by a lake.
Okay, picking back up. So what was the catalyst to your service? You getting into high school, you got a little bit of athletics on and off, and then what's the catalyst?
I think honestly, since I was like knee high to a duck, the only thing I revisioned was being like a scout sniper, like a sniper.
What's the earliest memory of that?
I don't know, because there's pictures of me when I was like 8 years old for Christmas, and I wanted a ghillie suit. I'm laying in my front yard. Yes. Like I still have that thing, and it's like it's hokey. It's
That's
really
awesome.
Hokey.
So it was just what you were.
I have
gonna
paper.
be.
I mean, I have papers on it. Like from like in middle school, I still have those papers. Like back home, my mom pulls them out and she's like, "Remember you had to write a report on the job you had to do?" And I was like, there's like 3 kids maybe that joined the military out of my high school, and like 2 of them were Marines. So it was like cool. So yeah, it was like that was just what I wanted to do. And then the war that happened, 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in grade school. Well, maybe not grade school, I was in middle school. I remember, sitting in class and putting that on. I was like, whew.
Now, did that impact you still, even at that age?
I didn't think it was going to go on as long as it did. And then it was like, okay, cool. This is my chance. Definitely. Like, this is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Like, this is, if anything, reinforces it. Cause I tried college out for everyone else's sake. And I was miserable. I got horrible grades. I had no ambition to it. I had no purpose to it. I was just like, so that was 2008. And then I depped in 2009. And I was like, yeah, I left for boot camp in 2010. That was like the best decision I'd made. Cause I was like, I had to do it. It was like my life dream. And I was like,
You're talking about Afghanistan heating up right at that moment.
I guess, yeah, it would have been saying it would have been 10.
Yeah.
But they had, things, yeah. I didn't hear a lot about any of that stuff for a while until, I got in. And then, yeah, I was one of the guys they did that, like, kind of surge thing. So, like, it was fairly easy, but infantry contracts were really hard to get. So like, oh, you could be a tanker, you could be an AAV bubba.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really what I wanted to do. So they're like, well, if you want to go infantry, you can do a fast company contract. I was like, oh, what's that all about? They're like, imagine if the Marine Corps had a SWAT team. You know what I mean? You get that,
Yes.
you get that jazz, and you're like, sounds cool. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
I did that route.
And so you're a Parris Island Marine?
Yes. Yeah. Straight from Ohio down to there, Parris Island. It was a pretty good time.
Did you have a good time?
I had a great time. It wasn't what I expected, but it was at the same time. Probably some of the silliest shit I think I'll ever see in my life. A grown man acting like a cat chasing a light definitely was like something that's gonna stick with me for a while. It's been probably the meow part of it. So yeah, no, that was an interesting go into it. And I was like, all right, yeah, this is fun.
Was there anything that was difficult about boot camp to you?
Learning bearing.
Check.
No, there's honestly probably a lot more to it that was demanding, but I think, it was like, yeah, getting a mentality down, or at least fortifying whatever mentality I already had there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, also bearing.
And did you have family that was service or no?
So this is crazy. I actually have a long family history dating back to like World War I, and then some other people that participated in the Mexican-American War. Like, I have a long-standing family history of the military that I knew nothing about until I was in.
Wow.
I reconnected with my great uncle. He's 83, and he has the service record of every Tryon that had served like prior to. And it was actually, I had no idea. And I think it was 80% of us are all Marines. At least the ones that did the cool stuff.
Any snipers other than you?
No, but there are other Tryons that are snipers, and I haven't figured out where they land necessarily on the family bloodline, because there are other ones. One of my old gunners, one of his team leaders, I guess, was a Tryon, and I haven't found out who he is yet. So.
I know when I graduated boot camp in 2004, the brigadier general in charge of...
There's a relation there.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. And I ran into another guy with actually shares my brother's exact name, Christopher. Middle name was the same and everything. He looked like I did. He looked like me too. It was weird. But he checked into Joker Company, same one I had left when I was in 5th Marines, and it was like, they're like, hey, what happened? I thought you were, still in, snipers. And I was like, yeah, I am. Like, oh, well, we see your name on the inbound roster. And I was like, my first name's Alex, and it says Chris on it. And I was like, that's my brother's name. And I met this guy. He was a really cool dude. He was in 1-5 before. He went over to 8th and I, and he ran into our that Tryon and used to hang out with them. So they connected there. So yeah,
there's a bunch of Tryons running around.
Too many
Tryons.
Too many Tryons. Not enough Indians.
So you leave boot camp and go to like BSG?
I did after I did SOI here down in Lejeune. But yeah, after that I was up to good old Northwest Annex.
Yep, SOI, BSG, and then you landed in a fast company somewhere?
3rd Fast over there in Norfolk.
Okay.
Or Charlie. I think it would have been Charlie then. I've been in the naming convention for it. 4th Platoon. It's a good time.
And one thing that I was a fast Marine too, so was Matt originally, and one thing that is for certain is they have a good budget for 40 dudes, and they get the ammo allocation of a battalion worth of Marines, and schools like AUC and Hurstmaster and the HRP defensive drivings, and you can get some great training if you have the right elements. And so, like, your parent command at FAST, was it a good, motivated group that had you training and had you out, or did, because what else that it could be?
Absolutely. And I know a lot of it is platoon leadership driven, and at that point you have a platoon commander that's a captain. This guy's been in for at least 12 years. He knows what's going on. You have, at that time, your sergeant had been in for 12 years. That was like a normal thing. Like, 12-year sergeant wasn't anything crazy. Those are your squad leaders. Your platoon sergeant had been in for 15. You know what I mean? Like, you had such a senior level leadership, and they were all tracking. And that was my first impression of the Marine Corps. And it was like, I had guys from Hawaii, I had guys from the West Coast, and guys from the East Coast, and that was when I really realized, like, wow, I'm learning how to do one task 3 different ways. And it was nice because if this way didn't work for this situation, I had the other 2. It was great, and I realized that's that culminating knowledge. I started to realize culminating knowledge is very important. So I had them, and then it was like the ammo allotment. I was like, wow, like, this is what we shoot like all the time, because it was like every Monday it felt like we were in the field. We came back on that Friday, early Friday, did your little, maintenance and all the rest, knocked out your maintenance day, went on leave, went on your weekend, came back. Monday you're prepping, go back to the field, and it seemed like you were always doing something. And I was like, wow, like this is cool. Sometimes it felt like you had more ammo than you could shoot. It was amazing. I was like, this is cool. This is like what it's all about. And then I left there after. Well, I didn't even have to do the full 2 years. We actually got to leave a little early. I think it was like at a year and 7 months or so. And then I checked into 2-4. That was like 2012.
Check.
But yeah, it was like vastly different.
Now, were you, when I was in FAST, we cross-trained on like the 50, the 240, I don't know about the mark, but we also had designated marksman training, M85, the combat shotgun, and then
10-14.
sidearms. So yeah, there you go.
We got all that one still.
So you were all.
We did a
trained.
non-lethal portion for a little bit. But yeah, we would have been non-lethal. We did the OC spray.
Oh my god.
Best day of everyone's life.
Yeah. How'd you like that?
Like I was bobbing for apples in a deep fryer.
I tell people frequently that
I have the cert still, and they spelled my name wrong. It was the only time I ever really cared to be like, I'll change my name back. Because normally people call me Tyrone, and I don't care. It's kind of silly. So I'm like, all right, sounds good. But this one, when I saw it was wrong, I was like, no, like this one needs to be fixed. I'm holding on to this forever. I still have it.
Oh, dude, I don't know if I have mine or not, but I should. I know that I tell people frequently of the two things in the Marine Corps that were as bad as they said they were. OC is one of them. Yeah. OC was one of those 100%. Things that was not only as bad as, but far, far worse.
What was the other one?
Marja was way worse than I was.
Somebody told you that beforehand.
What we anticipated that. What's that?
Okay.
Yeah, they said there would be X, and our resistance took longer. But OC spray, I think maybe it was worse than Marja. Just possible. I had a hard time with it.
Oof. So
like I buzzed through the course, and then it was just anger because it was like July and 100 fucking degrees
You're
out
sweating.
with like no breeze.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
It was actually better that it was July for us as well because we were sweating so much, it pushed more of it out. Because the guys that did it in the cold, they're like, man, it stuck there, and it just stayed there. And I was like, so I was glad, but it reacted a lot more. Absolutely.
I felt like when my eyelids slammed shut, and I got kind of screwed because it was like he hit me, and it was with the Mark IV, the little canister.
I had the Mark 9, no big deal.
Well, like he hit me, and it like I went to turn around, and he's like, "No, that was only half the spray." Pulls out the big 9 and goes and fogs me, and then he said, "Now look at me."
Okay, you had it way worse than I did. Never mind.
I know you were about to burn me. So I had to get it on the inside.
I had to throw it out there. You know how it is because they're like, "What do you want?" They're like, "It's gonna hurt either way." I was like, the 9, and then like I see it, but that little stream though looked very, very concentrated. So I was like, "Am I really losing out?" Like, but no, that bad Larry hit me, and there's like an iota of time. I was like, just for a scotch. I was like, everything's gonna be okay. I'm the one in whatever thousandth they said was immune to it, and I was like, this is when I'm shining. And then
it's not me.
I wasn't shining. I was burning.
That's a great way of putting it.
I wasn't having it, and I was just like, wow, I got to do this course. And I felt bad because like some people they missed it by like a second. Like the thing, like because but they're waiting on their buddy for like the buddy takedown maneuvers, and I was just like, oh man,
it's bad.
I'd probably beat that guy to death.
I will kill him.
I'd be so mad if I was like,
I'll kill him through the pads,
bro. Yeah, that was some wild stuff.
I remember walking so that I could like walk into the breeze, what little breeze there was, because it was like so relieving. And then when I would turn around to walk with the breeze, I would like hyperventilate and be like, dude, you got to keep breathing. Just breathe in and breathe out like I'm saying this in my head.
There was a guy in class before us that I guess blew his toe off with a shotgun. He said he'd rather blow his other one off. I guess was the thing than get it again with it.
I don't know about
that. I was like, that's a bit.
It's a bit drastic.
I don't know. It's been pulled out in like bar fights though in Jacksonville that I've been partaking in, and as soon as I hear that they're pulling it out or see it, God forbid you get the smell in your nose, like it's just terrifying. I think I would run from OC canister quicker than I would run from somebody with a weapon.
Can confirm. I think it's more. I honestly think it's a little more humane to shoot somebody.
I think so too. It's got.
If you don't believe me, I just It's
got finality to it, and then you can fix it. And oh yeah,
we drank that Northwest Annex bar dry that night.
I didn't go out that night. I passed out face down on my air conditioner, and my roommate Chavez went back and got straight into the shower.
Oof, bold move, Cotton. It drips right down to right down where it's brown. It's going.
And he paid double for that action. Yeah, I heard him scream like this blood curdling scream, and I just figured that the water burned him. Maybe it was too hot or something. No, he ran it down. Although his chest was like beet red, and then on down. You know, it was a bad time for him. Old Chavez, Eric Chavez, shout out. Okay, so fast. Okay, then you're at fast. You got a pretty good leadership element. You're training a lot.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we were training all the time. I was learning I was learning a bunch of stuff. I was trying to be that sponge. You needed to learn something like new every day. Mm-hmm. You needed to that's like, I don't know. That should always kind of be your objective wherever you're at, is to try to better yourself, try to learn something to apply, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it was that's always been a big thing for me, and I think a lot of that again was like inspired by that leadership that encouraged those. Like, I understand, like, you know, the zero defect mentality, and sometimes that really did hinder a lot of, you know, it hinders a lot of people's growth. And these guys encouraged you to, you know, try something different, try something new, see why this doesn't work. You know, you learned by making mistakes. You learned by, you know, but it was all in training, and that was where it was okay to make them. Mm-hmm. And like, they fostered a learning environment. Everything was a teachable moment. It was great, and it seemed like everyone around you was just like, that was the mindset. Yeah.
That's a great operational environment to be in, and I've been in those environments, and then I've also had the, you know, displeasure of being in environments where it was, you know, the antithesis of that, and then when you're wanting it, you can't get it from anywhere.
Right.
It's depressing. But so you have a great element. What kind of deployments you did with fast?
Did one of their Bahrain ones, and then did a couple of JSTs on those. I don't know if you guys, if they call them that. Oh, ASTs, Armed Service Transport. It's not JSTs.
Okay.
JSTs are Joint Service Transcripts.
Okay. And so, I know that one.
You don't need those.
Yeah, not there. You shut the Desert Dome up there in Bahrain down?
Oh, absolutely. And then at one point when we were leaving, we got extended for like 2 more months, and we'd already moved out. So we were living in the bowling alley.
Oh, good.
In that little gym in the back. It was quite cool. We'd sneak in there and like slide down the lunch trays and whatnot. Yep.
Solid. I'm sure I like that.
Just being good Americans.
I love it. Patriotic Marines and Hellraisers. So you leave Fast Company to go where? 2-4.
Yeah, 2-4.
Check.
Yep, 2-4.
And where are they at in rotation?
They just got back from Afghan, and they were in the middle of a workup for another Afghan deployment, which is why I was like, sweet, as we're going. We hit the 31st MEU.
And did you go there with guys from your Fast platoon? Did you at least have a couple buddies going with you, or did you go by yourself?
No, actually, a couple people came with us. So really, I think the construct was most of the married lads were brought down here to Lejeune to be a shorter move for like them and the wives, I guess, is the way they did it. If you were an NCO and you were single, I think you were sent to Hawaii, because some guys went that way, or maybe. Yeah, I think that was the way that construct went. And then the rest of us, was off to 5th Marines.
Mm-hmm. Check. And so do you walk into the same operational environment at your company there as you leave from Fast?
Oh, it was wonderful. it was great. Those guys were definitely locked on. Given they had just got back, they were fresh on it. They had an amazing insight where, like, a lot of my squad leaders before were like OIF guys. Mm-hmm. So I didn't hear a lot about, what worked in OEF. So, like, now I'm learning new ways to do things as well. A bunch of fresh perspectives on, like, what's currently happening. Like, this is what just worked, just went down.
Right.
And they were fiercely passionate about everything they were doing, and I loved it. I fell back into it. I noticed, like, there's not as much ammo here. You don't do it, but what you didn't make up with that, you made up with, like, time you sent your guys in the backyard. Mm-hmm. And then that was, like, because I was a fire team leader in Fast Company. Different because you're, like, trying to lead your peers because you came there all the same. You grew up together. And then going and, like, now learning to be a fire team leader in a line company, man, that was cool. Mm-hmm. I loved it.
And talk about the differences in that a little bit deeper.
I don't know. I'd say being able to lead your peers was definitely harder because, like, you guys are such on an even keel. They're following you now out of more because you know what you're doing better. Maybe because you're older. Sometimes I think I was picked because I was kind of the older guy of the group. Mm-hmm. But obviously not, like, retrospectively, not, like, super old, but that's it was different there because you get your younger guys and your fire team are all privates and PFCs. Mm-hmm. So you're a corporal. Obviously, they understand there's a rank structure as opposed to, like, they're like, okay, I'm following this guy because he knows what he's doing and he's been doing it for a while. As opposed to your peers are like, we've done everything the same. Mm-hmm. So it's more of a leadership challenge, learning to, like, work with your peers, but it benefited me in the long run.
Yeah. Because
I learned, like, a lot about, well, at that time I learned a lot about it. There's just always plenty to learn about it. I don't have the answers for everything, but yep.
Oh yeah. And so though you don't have the same budget, the training's going down, the white space training's going down, we're making up for it, and you start a whole rotation to go back into Afghanistan. And this time as a fire team leader?
But we went to the 31st MU instead. Okay. They changed that deployment. But yeah, I was a fire team leader in 1st Platoon. I had old squad leader, Lentz, and the other 2 team leaders were Ryan and Whitney. Man, yeah, I learned a lot from them, and I learned a lot from the other 2 squad leaders. One of them came from another company. He was an Ohio guy, Schwab, and then second squad's guy was Nathan Nauman. And I learned a lot from them too. They had a lot of cool perspectives, just being in different companies and being in different areas. So everything was kind of like a real teachable moment. They worked through with things like, you might not understand this battle drill. Here's how we do it here. And I was kind of learning because obviously Fast Company, you don't get the actual, like, infantry stuff. You don't do a lot of it. Like, our command was good about it. Towards the end, when they knew we were leaving, they did, like, a transitioning back into this is how it's going to be here.
Check.
And then these guys helped me refine that, and that paid dividends later on when, like, it was, when I left from, like, the NDOC and those things, they're looking for how proficient are you as an infantryman. So, like, they helped refine those skills later on. And that was, like, that's where a lot of that came to fruition later. But, that was, like, their impact. That was my first understanding of, like, the actual line companies. Mm-hmm. It's great.
It's definitely got its own psychology.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's me too. And so where do we go after the MEU?
We got back, and then a buddy of mine, Alex Rodriguez, we saw screeners for the NDOC coming up, and I was like, man, this year we're going to do, might Bill could be a squad leader, might, see what the next step is here. And it's like, you always hear rumors like you're going to get rebooted in snipers, you're going to have you're going to have a bad time or whatever. Well, I was like, all right, well, this is, the time to try it. So me and him, we tried out. So that's where that took me next, and I kind of never like looked back because that was my goal in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, well, we'll go train for it. And
had you been seeking that out because it was still a goal, or did it by happenstance you stumble upon that they needed some people to run it?
So I had no understanding at the time when they run screeners. I had no idea to the system of it. I was actually just like getting established in the line company first. I was still like learning as much skills as I can as a rifleman, and just refining that. And then by the time that popped up, I was like, okay, yeah, I felt good enough to go have those skills tested.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know exactly when.
Check. I mean, how did you find out about the screener? Like,
oh, they post flyers. They put a bunch of different things up.
it's like a read board somewhere.
Yeah, sometimes they put flyers outside the PX, flyers around the barracks everywhere, contact information. Go talk to somebody, weapons company, be like, hey, where's this at? They'd be all over the battalion CPs. Like we'd put them generally everywhere, and I think anywhere around that area, the 62 area, some of them put them all over. Some people put them at the gym.
Sure.
All over.
Sure, check. And okay, so take me through that. I want to know, for the people that don't know, and I don't know a lot about it, I've never been through it. Tell me about the NDOC, basically what that consists of and what they're looking for. And you probably know a lot more of the behind the scenes now, but kick into that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So each NDOC's like kind of different. There are some that there's like book boards. There's other ones where you're doing like actual events. Some are a couple of days long, some are a couple of weeks, some are longer.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just constantly. Like it's. We always used to say, it's easy to get in, it's harder to stay into those platoons because you're constantly, you should be constantly getting tested. You should be constantly evaluating yourself and evaluating the platoon. Mine happened to be like a week or so. And it was really just like, a lot of it was basic skills. That's what you can evaluate. Like, I had the misconception, it's like, well, I got to learn as much stuff about, sniping and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else, that I had, conception-wise before getting there. I was like, this is what I got to learn to get there. I'm like, well, we can't evaluate on this here. You don't know anything about it. We know you don't.
Sure.
What do you know about, machine guns? What do you know about rucking, call for fire? What do you know about radios? Like, it was just like basic things that you should know.
Mm-hmm.
So we were tested on that. A lot of land nav. It's a good time.
A lot of PT, I assume.
Yeah.
Now, did they have you swim?
I think we were meant to swim, but the pool in the Mateo was like either closed or Recon had it, one of the two. So we didn't swim that day.
There's tons of running, though.
All the running. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of running.
All of it.
It was all. There's all the running.
All of it that was available.
Yeah, all available running. All the fast legs, all the heavy legs, as many legs as you can imagine. I remember. So I had silly and dog story. I ended up with walking pneumonia.
Good.
During
your NDOC?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. I passed out and I pissed myself. That's what woke me up. And I still I injured my leg really bad to the point that I had to splint my leg. And I came hobbling down. We were doing land nav, and I made this splint for my leg out of some of my shit and this pole. And I come hobbling down the truck. The kid's like, "Do you want to get in the truck?" I'm not spelling Dorito, D-O-R. I was like, it's not happening. If I get in this truck, I fail. I'm like, I'm not getting in that truck.
Uh-huh.
So I hobbled my ass back. I come up, I'm like, all right. I'm like, what's next? You know what I mean? I got on my points. I was jazzed about it. Smelled like piss. Yeah, definitely ran hard that day. And I was just
Can you explain to me why you passed out?
Exhaustion.
Just getting after it so hard.
Going
down.
That's what I loved about it. Was like you were just literally. It was one of those things, and sometimes you need those reminders every now and again. One of those things that people always forget that your body's going to quit before your mind, and sometimes we lay back on your mind quitting first for most things. But I realized, like, yeah, there's that threshold, and I've pushed this. We can push it again, and my body just stopped before my mind did. You know, that's why I passed out. Pneumonia had something to do with it, I imagine.
I would
try to
so.
Ruck a little bit.
Are you rucking weight on this nav?
Yeah, there's general items. I think that might have even fit either probably in a day pack. It probably didn't require a major.
Nothing heavy.
They did. I know they try to keep a decent load on you, but I don't think it was anything absurd or anything noteworthy.
And so was this NDOC, knowing what you know now, and we'll get into the the formal school, but was this NDOC a good preparation psychologically for what was to come for you? Going through the formal school or going into one of the platoons? I'm not sure which came first.
It was spectacular for it. I mean, because you felt like there was always something you could fail at in NDOC, and when you're at the school, you always feel like there's something you can constantly fail, it's something you can always go home for, and it is a big mental game. Everything is mental, and that's something where we, at least in the platoons I've been in and all the rest, we looked for. Really, the biggest thing were guys that were just mentally strong. You can make a body stronger, but not if they want to do it, if they want to be better. So I'd always look for those people that had heart. They had, they're mentally strong, and that's what they were looking for. They were looking for people that didn't know what quitting was. And I think that definitely, pays dividends in the end. It did for us.
Absolutely. I think in any situation it does. And so, NDOC, you get through, you pass with flying colors, I assume, with this. So they were going into the night land nav, and they told me I wasn't allowed to train anymore. They're like, no, your leg is messed up. I'm like. And what was it? The knee? Was it a?
There was something going on between my knee, my IT band, and something else. It's the one of the ligaments in my leg. It was a constant problem. I did a lot of physical therapy on it, but I was asking, well, when's your next NDOC? Because I was I'm not quitting, but they told me I couldn't train anymore, and I took that as, okay, well, I wanted to know when the next one is so I could come back. They did their night land nav, and they did a mock mission, I guess is what went down afterwards. And they got a call. They're like, hey, you're going to come in for your final interview. I was like, oh, I'm doing that? And they took me, and I was mind blown, dude. It was
So they were accepting you even though you were banged up, couldn't complete that last stop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They didn't have to, obviously, but they're just you have heart, you've displayed it, you obviously want to be here, you didn't quit, you didn't get in the truck, you made your time.
And who was running the NDOC?
Who were my leadership?
Yeah, leadership wise.
I don't know if I can use their names.
No. So was this sniper? Internal unit snipers running.
Oh yes,
NDOC,
yes.
Or,
This was platoon driven within the battalion, battalion level leadership running it. I mean that's pretty standard for your platoon. They put it on.
Check. And so what happens next?
Yeah,
does it go back to training as normal until a school comes around, or do you go into?
You do kind of at times you have platoon level training, level tasks you need to accomplish. So you'll do some of the basics. You'll start to learn some shooting. You'll start to learn some land nav, stalking. You'll go over certain things big three. People don't do too well at.
But you're in a sniper platoon now, though.
Yes, once you're selected. Okay, sorry. Yeah, once you pass the NDOC, you're in the platoon. You're you start learning those skills. Sometimes they send you a couple of different schools, like just some things to get under your belt, see how well you do with those. You start learning the ins and outs. You start doing missions. We did a workup, and then we went on the MEU again.
And you're a corporal at this point?
No. So I was a corporal at the NDOC, and then I picked up sergeant when I was in the platoon.
Sure.
So I pretty much, once I picked up sergeant until I got out, that whole time was spent, doing stuff in the sniper community.
Check. Okay, so first platoon, now you're working up. Go from there.
First platoon?
So you're with your first sniper platoon, right?
Oh, yes.
At the time.
Okay, yes. We did the workup, so we went did a lot of good stuff there. They sent me to Hearst, which I was like super relieved I was here they're on the West Coast at the time, because I had a platoon sergeant beforehand that they're like, you got this new platoon sergeant, but he's at Hearst, he'll come see you. He hit a tree, like broke half the bones inside of his body. I was like, oh, good. Yeah,
that was your experience with Hearst.
That was my idea when they're like, you're going to Hearst, and I was like, what did I do wrong? So I went to Hearst on the West Coast, so I guess I wasn't like a jerk. And I went with my other three buddies, and Alex Rodriguez still there with me, another guy, like the guy that me and him were in the line company together, same company, Joker. And him and Dylan Story and Shane Wood. It was all four of us there at Hearst. That was fun.
Now explain for people who don't understand what Hearst is, what the school is, what it's based on, and why it would be good to
Hearst,
have it as a
I guess.
sniper.
Well, so Hearst is like helicopter rope suspension techniques, I think is, if I remember the acronym correctly.
Sounds right.
And it's beneficial in the sense that you learn and certify that you can fast rope people in terms of like an insert method, and then there's like spy rigging for extract. Not that I can't think of, I've never, aside from doing spy rigging there at the schoolhouse, I don't know when that's applied to the last people. It's a fun thing to do, but I don't know the last time anyone's technically did it myself.
Sure.
But it was a good course to have, because when a rappel tower came up, or I was attached to more often than not the company that was a heel company, so that benefited me because I could work and integrate well with them. I could fill in if they needed Hearst Masters, and that also just like company integration, run the company through those kinds of things. So I was like, help you be an enabler with the company, which I think that kind of helps too.
Absolutely.
Like, always having a good rapport with those people you work with.
Yeah, and adding another resource or asset to you.
Yeah.
Given that you need it. I actually liked fast roping. Now I didn't go to Hearst Masters, but in fast during advanced urban combat school in, I think it was Chesapeake.
Yeah.
Yep.
We did dual entry, and we got to play with, I think they were Sea Stallions. They came in for the Coast Guard to facilitate training, trying to help out, and so we got to do a lot of fast roping, and I liked that a lot. I didn't get to learn the knots. You guys go over a lot of knots in Hearst, right?
My Atlanta.
Yeah.
All the knots.
All of them.
We were just talking about water tape knots the other day, and those used to beat me up. And like, it didn't help, it was like a $120 soaking wet. Easily solid muscle, 120. And so like you're coming to like put tension on ropes at the time, and it's like I'm really like giving as much tension as I can, and then like one of the instructors, he was also a 2-4 guy, amazing guy, very knowledgeable. His name was Ricketts. He was probably like 6'7" and like 2.5 of me.
He could put some tension.
So he'd like just like step on it like one leg, just absolutely take all the tension out of it, and he's like, yeah, you need a little more tension on this. I'm like, I just can't.
I just don't have it.
I'm trying. Look. They, obviously they understood, but yeah, that was, man. Yeah, those are some times.
Good training.
Yeah, it was good training.
Good training.
It was good training. Always used it. We did a lot of Hearst stuff. We did a lot of fast ripping.
Yeah.
A lot of, actually, that whole workup, and on deployment we did it. We were just in Japan doing fast rip stuff. they'd do elevators on the ship. They'd put a little elevator down. You'd fast rip off that thing. Like, yeah, we did a couple runs with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of actually, now that I think about it, odd amount normally.
Now you said you were attached to a helicopter company. So is it safe to say you did the helo dunking exercises as well?
Yes, but even when I was in a line company first, I was in a track company. When I did the track dunker, was actually my first introduction to going upside down underwater.
Yeah, explain that. Explain that to the viewers.
I enjoyed it. I was that guy that was like, here we go. You know what I mean?
We're going to do it.
But the thing was, I think the thing I liked about it was I would like close my eyes and I'd like wait. I would just like to sit there because I'm like fairly comfortable underwater. Like I'm not Swimzilla. Like I'll finish the thing at my own pace.
But you're not afraid of it.
No. And I would love it because I would like kind of go upside down and I just waited for all the new people. I would open my eyes and just watch everyone freaking out. Yeah. I think that was like what I was like really partial to. And then like, you know, someone's like, the instructor's making sure you're not in shock. Like,
yeah.
It's like, no, I'm just like watching everyone hang out. I'm like, it's cool. Like, check it out.
I want to see what you see.
Yeah. But yeah, that was an interesting thing. I think my first rollover trainer was actually the Humvee ones.
Yeah, it sucks.
Do you remember that with like the ammo? Like you're like get in and you're like everything looks good in here. There's like fire extinguisher on your foot.
Oh yeah.
Then it rolls over and hits you in the chin. It's made of foam, but you're also like, well, okay, yeah, now I get it. Like,
which I don't
strap
know.
things down.
And those would be the cleanest Humvees you'd ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Compared to what you're packing in country, yeah. So much stuff to fuck you up in an explosion inside of a truck.
Probably all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
100%. So, at what point do you go to school?
So 2014 was the first time I went to school. And at the time, my ex-wife had my ex-kid as well. So I went home. I wasn't even there a week. I wasn't doing good on land nav anyway, and it was just like, yeah, your kid's being born. So I went home, and then I went back in 2015, and after the deployment, and it was so much better in that sense because I hadn't been in the platoon for probably less than 4 months when they were trying to send me. And I know some guys, like I met kids, they were like, I was in platoon for a week, and then they went and passed. I don't know how you do it. It's amazing. Honestly amazing. I don't have that. I don't have that capacity.
Yeah, so you had a little extra time to.
I learned what I learned there, and I learned a lot, but it's, school isn't somewhere you should be learning something entirely new. It's kind of more of an evaluation of what you picked up in your platoon. And, when I went back the second time, it was like, I was ready. Like, I had amazing leadership. Those guys, like, wouldn't have been able to do without them. Like, 100%. Like, I was probably overly annoying, always asking them questions. I'd ask them about wind probably 600 times a day. Like, they probably still think about it. Yeah.
You talk about during school?
No, this is even like before.
This
is before the whole lead up to it and the workup. When I had that extra chance, and I was like, they're like, you're going back, and I was like, okay, like, after deployment. But I was always asking questions, especially towards like the end before I went. But I went there and stayed there. Never went home. I was married at the time. I didn't really go home during the week at all. I wouldn't do it. I was like, they're like, stay in the environment. Like, immerse yourself, be like, that is all you care about. And I was like, okay. That's what I did.
And the attrition rate at this school is what? Stupid high, right?
Depending on the schoolhouse. But, yeah. I mean, I think the average is like, I don't know, 50 or 60%. I know there's like some courses that you might have a higher one, and then other ones you just have like an absurdly low one. Like that first one I went to in 2014, I think had 2 or 3 graduates. And then I graduated with 12. I think we started with 32 or 34, somewhere around there. Like, we had a decent sized class.
Check. And where was your school?
I was in Pendleton.
So you go time number 2, pass with flying colors.
Flying colors, I passed.
Passed. Now, what was the hardest spot at school? I know a lot of people say stalking, and
I had a lot of I did have a lot of stocks before I went to school because I did like a couple unit pre-sniper thing packages we did in there, and then like our regimental thing ran a couple. So stalking wasn't necessarily that I would have really like I super struggled with. It's all probably like the mental stuff of like there's something to fail every week, even if it's something you knew 100 times, like that extra added level of stress.
And when you say that, are you at this school? Are you constantly being evaluated? Is that what you're saying?
Everything.
At everything that you do from
First
open to close.
Yep. Open and close. It's probably like the one thing about it that's really you gotta like kind of like really comfortable with is just being like, yes, everything you can do, every single thing's like a graded event. Yep. I loved it.
And that's interaction between peers, comrades, leadership.
I don't know how much weight peer reviews have anymore, if at all. I don't know. Not to get like too much into the weeds or politics on that. I know, at some points that carries weight. Yeah, they do peer reviews.
I know, isn't it TBS that's heavy on peer reviews for their process?
Ranger School too.
Ranger School
and
too.
I think soft training as well.
I liked it because personality-wise, it's nice because like even we look at some some indocs you do, you're looking for a personality because you're going to be working in a small number of people, tight knit for a while, and it helps to have a personality that is a team player, someone gets along with everybody. So personality was another thing you look for in someone. If they're not a team player, it doesn't really matter what you can do. If you're not playing with a team, we don't need you.
Yeah, check.
Yep.
Yeah. Check. So graduate, you pass the school, and come back to your parent unit, and what happens next?
I left to a task force in Bahrain.
Okay.
Yep. For a year.
No fun.
No.
Just back to Bahrain, and you'd already seen that and got that T-shirt.
Yeah.
140 fucking degrees.
It's boring.
Yeah.
Well, I met a really okay. It was a boring time in terms of the work. Like I might go talk to Fast Company DMs. We did a couple exchanges with some other partner force stuff, very small, but it was nice in the sense of the people I met there. Really good infantry Marines, really a lot of good Marines from other MOSs that I never would have interacted with, and it was cool to see another side of the Marine Corps. One thing I picked up from one of the guys I mentioned earlier, Nauman, was like, he's like, oh, I want to do every one of each type of deployment the Marine Corps had to offer, MUs, UDPs, and combat deployment. Like, see them all. That was what spurred me leaving the 7th as well. Okay. I left that task force after a year. It was helpful having the command on my side there to leave as well for like, because I was like, they're like, where do you want to go? And I was like, I want to go to 7th Marines. So like, where? I was like, 3-7. I asked for it. It's funny because every other unit I've ever PCS'd anywhere, being on the inbound roster, I've never had higher up, reach out to me about coming there. But our Sergeant Major Hampton reached out to us and he was like, hey, like, I see you're checking in at 3-7. Like, I know guys see that on their orders and they want to find other alternatives. I was like, no, I asked to come here. So like, and he was actually there like to like show me around and stuff. It was amazing.
Wow.
That guy was, great impression. Honestly, like through and through, that was a good Sergeant Major.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. So you check in, and then where they at in the cycle? And did you research that prior to, or was it going to be 3-7 regardless of where they were?
I had my heart always set on 7th Marines. 7th Marines, it didn't matter where I was, whether I met one in Fast Company, whether I met somebody in 5th Marines that came from 7th, because I met guys from 3-7, old 3-4 guys. I met all types of people from 7th Marines, and I didn't have a heap of exposure to East Coast Marines, but it was anytime anybody said you're from 7th Marines, people just looked at you differently. People interacted with you differently. It was like, this guy knows what they're doing. Like, this guy had great training. This guy, generally, they're always locked on. I never really met too many guys from, 7th Marines in that time that were ever really, like, messed up, So I was like, yep. Well, that whole time I was gone, we got to see, because we saw everything CENTCOM was doing. That was part of what we did on that task force. And I was like, I saw what 2-7 did. I saw what 3-7 did. It was like kind of a disparity between, what each unit was able to do. And I was like, codified, definitely solidified the decision. I was like 3-7.
Yep.
So they just got back, and I just got back like, I don't know, you guys got what month?
What month what?
They got back in like April, and I checked in like in April. So we got back at the same time. So I landed right when their work was starting.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
And you're a sergeant at this point?
Yes.
Yep. Coming in to 7th. All right. We'll go from there.
Yep. Checked in. Man, it was great because it was the first time in a long time where we had more than like 2 hogs in the platoon. There's a bunch. We had a bunch of good dudes.
What do you mean when you say that?
So most of the platoons I'd been in, some of them, like the most actual hogs we had in the platoon would probably be sometimes like maximum of like 3 or 4.
I mean, when you say hog for the layman, what does that mean?
School trained scout snipers.
Sure.
Yeah, it was difficult because, sometimes there's not always school allocation. Sometimes guys just don't pass. Guys aren't ready when they go, whatever the reason is. Because I know some guys, PCS, they can get, pull guys over real quick to places. I've seen units with 15 in them. There's like units with a lot of hogs in them. But I was just, the ones I was in were, most of these guys were either leaving or we just didn't have a lot coming in, or we guys, some guys were just, probably just not passing.
Right.
We had a couple guys leaving, and then ended up being me staying. We just sent a guy to school. He passed and came back, and then we had our platoon sergeant come in. So it was brand new leadership across the board. And then we kind of just started building a platoon up.
Yeah.
We started fresh as those like senior guys were kind of checking out, moving on. A couple of them stuck around. And we just kind of got ready. We didn't know exactly where we were going. We know we were doing CENTCOM. It was either Afghanistan or Iraq, I think, was like the only 2 options at the time. And then Syria hit the docket. We were like, okay, this is going to be interesting. I left off to the advanced course, knocked that out, came back. We sent as many of our guys from the teams to as many different schools as they could get. We loved plussing those guys out. And then workup was a smash, like absolute good time.
Like I've never done or been part of a workup as you guys would do it. So can you give me the down and dirty on what that looks like? Outside of what a regular grunt workup would be, or is it a lot alike?
There's like certain, like you're still doing the various level tasks without maybe like telling too much about what we do for training, because I don't like putting a lot of that out there, but we have our kind of like crawl, walk, run kind of things. You do work your individual skills, and you slowly like kind of work, like being a good radio guy. You're gonna learn some radio stuff on your own individually. You're gonna get better at that. Then you start tying into how that works into when you're doing something. Then you're gonna you might end up teaching that. It was all about learning schools and then spreading that knowledge. And you do that kind of like everyone broke up individually. You're back as a team. Now you're working as a platoon. Now you're working with a company. Long and short of it.
And so you guys, I assume there's a lot of training with indirect fires too, because you guys support, forward observer kind of activity. And from your vantage point, typically on the battlefield, that's something that you can utilize. Is it?
Yeah, we do. I mean, that's like our biggest thing, being a supporting asset, would be, like the fires thing. We do a lot of handoffs with things. I lucked out again. I I think it's, I had an all-star platoon, I'd say, and team, because I had, everyone in my team was an NCO. I had the senior JFO in the battalion as my fires guy. I had the senior RO in the battalion as my radio operator. Two very, proficient guys had been in the infantry for a while that, had a bunch of different skill sets. Like, all my guys were solid.
Yeah.
And then we ended up getting a corpsman later, so we were covered there too. But yeah, it was, team ran itself, but it was like fires. Everyone got time on learning it. If there's any fires exercise, we were in the same company, so like running through weapons company, be like, 81s is going somewhere. If there was extra rounds or anything to do, they'd let our guys fire it. Like, it was nice. Like, like really easy, kind of like real symbiotic relationship there. They're getting their time firing, we're getting rounds in. So it was nice.
Yeah. And so time comes up. What's the decision? Is it Syria? Is it Afghanistan?
My team ended up going to Syria, and this was honestly, it was something between me and my platoon sergeant talked about it a lot of times, because I kind of had like some leeway for where I wanted to go, or where I wanted our team to go. And so we put team 1 went to Afghan, team 3 went to Iraq, and then we pushed ours to Syria. And then I think the guys were supposed to go to Iraq and ended up going back to Kuwait. We didn't give that company a sniper team. They didn't get along with them. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So your element ends up in Syria?
Yes.
And the other element ends up in Afghanistan?
Yes, and the last element was in Kuwait. That was it.
Check. And you are attaching to Marines here?
No, this was like something new for us, and the construct, it was, we were attaching to the Green Berets.
Okay.
And that was like our first like long-term interaction with them. They have their school trained guys, they have their tier 1 snipers, so like they kind of have like a capability that we already kind of like had. So it was like, where you get in here, where do you fit that tempo? It was easier to kind of fit in for some of the other weapons MOSs between 52s, especially 41s, easy mix. We had, we were working at 308s. They have, 300 Win Mags, they're starting with, they did have some SASs, they had some 308, rifles, but they weren't going to use them. The distances we were dealing with. I found my niche with the Sasser. That was like the one thing they just weren't all about. And I was like, okay, I like this one, so that's good. I don't know, my old Chief Scout was like very adamant about the Sasser. He did some amazing work with it. And it was like, he came up with his own constructs for like wind and things that I got to apply and test. And I was like, man, like this, like I called him afterwards and was telling him about it. I was like, dude, like everything you said worked. Like your formula works. Great guy. I attribute everything I knew, learned about the Sasser to him, and my other buddy, my old team leader, but not to go in that rabbit hole. But yeah, we got attached to the Green Berets. At first I was up just kind of like monitoring weird interactions with like Russians. It was like, I was at an oil field. It was, I was there for like a month before I got pulled down to another spot where the fight was more oriented towards like ISIS. It took like a month to get me down there. The ODA guys ended up having to like request us because our like CO didn't want me going down there first.
Well, who do you fall under at that point then?
I think, I want to say TACON still belonged to the Army, and it was weird because you were an SP Mag half asset, your battalion, but your company commander didn't really have a say so much with certain things as like the ODA did. Because you were definitely direct support
of them. And so once they get a request, then they're shooting you down there.
You were living with them, so once they're like, hey, well, okay, well, we want this guy down here. They got me down there because they have I guess whatever their construct is. There are guys that went to a formal school for it, and then there are guys that went to like some other, almost like having a certificate. I don't know enough about it to articulate that well, but they go to those courses. So they wanted like a school trained guy down there. And my platoon sergeant was down there, but he wasn't operating in that capacity right then. So they brought me down. So that was like that fulfilled their.
And then you have a mission there, or is this just added security?
They started integrating us into missions. I was able to get out, start doing some reconnaissance, going down, like we would hit the flat with them and look. Sometimes I would go drop rounds with the mortarmen. Other times I would sit, just get my spotting scope out, start looking for, any signs of activity, whatever it might have been. Found a couple, key positions. You'd see their flags, off in the distance. You might identify some, their logistics hubs. You'd see, like, they put sandbags in windows, build their positions. Like, okay, this is like a fortified building here. Get grids to it, and then just use it for targeting later. So that was like the first. That was some of the stuff they started integrating us with, and then we'd start doing stuff. We'd go out at night. We'd set up the sassers. We'd get on the thermals. They you'd call mortars in. They'd send up a couple of different devices, or we'd just do some shooting with the sassers or whatever it was.
And on. At this time, are you supporting other missions that are going across the FLOT, or is this really recon and probe and that kind of work?
At the time, I think more our deployment for the most part was pretty steady in terms of, like, we were going out, we'd do like those kind of fire style missions, also like with the observation. It wasn't towards the end because they were still pushing and clearing other parts. So we were kind of in that holding pattern, like in a more defensive posture, and it was like maintaining and establishing that. The end is when that changed. That's when dynamic changed, because the last place they had to go was where we were defending. That was kind of that would have been the big major shift. But before that, it was just regular. We were just defensive operations, going down there, trying to reduce obstacles, whatever might be actionable intel. They were working a lot with the partner forces, supporting them, and then we would fall in on that mission, go help support them, whatever it was with that, convoys, whatever.
Check. And as you integrated with the Army, was that seamless, or did it take some proving?
Yes.
Was it parochial attitudes in the beginning, and you kind of had to?
It was team dependent between that and depending on what they both had their own approaches to it, like in terms of how they were going to integrate us and to what capacity. But aside from that, they're all really. They're all good about it. We did a little more with some teams than the other ones because, depending on what their operational needs were. But, it was easier working with, one or the other, but it's, not here to say anything bad about the team.
So not bad per se, but it can be challenging. In my opinion, I've had to integrate in different teams that teams that you don't know, and when you're integrating into a new environment, a new team, you're going to have parochial attitudes, you're going to have that kind of thing. And not that we deal with that on a negative consistently. It can be just as much a positive thing. Make opposite teams keep their shit quick, let's say. But did you deal with any of that with them? You said your transitions with these guys were pretty good.
The transitions were good. So, like, we had, like, the first place I showed up, we had a very short rip. I think it was, you could measure it in hours. Like, we hit there 2-7 and just, they got there not long before that. Just established. I mean, I think, they might have had sectors of fires, no range card even yet. Like, they just showed up and there was, like, nothing. Like, the base hadn't been cleared. I know they had, like, hidden ID prior to that. Like, nothing on there was clear. So you gotta, like, watch where you're going still on like the base alone, wherever we're at. And it was like that was the rip. So, like, the other part of it was you weren't just doing a rip with them. You're doing the rip with like the ODA team that they've been there for a while already. So like they're towards like the end of their deployment as well. So they had their battle rhythm that whole time with how they're doing things, and then following on this. So like, yeah, there's like a growing pain between theirs, disparity between experience of doing that over this time. Then okay, these guys, get them into the fold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We blended very quickly into their battle rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Part was also because we had prior knowledge before we were leaving about kind of what we might be getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So like we were able to incorporate some of that into the training later on. So
sure.
Like I think we already knew we were going to get into like maybe using 120s and stuff like that. So
trained up on it.
I think so. I want to say they might have trained up on it. I don't know if they actually got hands-on with them, but I think they trained up on them.
It wasn't the first they were thinking about, it's what you're saying.
Right.
Check. And so, contextually, now you have forces that are north of you guys that are crossing the flot, driving the enemy, and then kind of pushing down towards your, like, ultimately where you guys are at?
Yes.
Is that am I tracking that right?
Yes.
And so, do you notice that as those guys are coming down? Are you doing missions to interdict like those routes, or is it more like you said you're still stationary defensive?
We had our sector, and then we had like a place that we'd occupy like a little bit further south every now and again, on and off. And that would actually rotate between a couple different teams.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing necessarily we did was initially, I wouldn't call it interdiction. We might inhibit movement, but we weren't necessarily wrapping anyone up or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But to an extent, it just depended. Most of the time, we would only operate so far south because we did have the support of like another team down that area.
Mm-hmm.
And as forces pulled south, we had more forces over there, so we didn't necessarily have to do as much for the first part of it until things kind of like towards the end, because they started drawing some of them further south, but they started pulling some positions down.
What do you mean by that? You just talking about south of your position?
Well, at one point the SDF positions like just broke down when I guess Hajin, like they did this big breakout, and like a bunch of the flot broke. And I thought was that when they shut Munson down? So they like shut down these positions like ahead of time, started pulling people back in. We were on that list.
The SDF?
Yeah, they completely just broke. They left. Like a lot of even the positions up by us, they just broke. So our base ended up getting cut off. Like our convoy, it's funny, one of our buddies, like our convoy was coming in, because we were in our middle of our rip by this time at the end of the deployment. And it was, half of 3-4 was there, half of us are here, and like they're leaving, and it was like our last operating bits, and we got our last convoy to come get us got cut off, so we were kind of cut off for like 3 days. That's when like all like the big time mortars, anti-aircraft, and a couple like homemade 105s started slamming this little base we had. That was after that flot broke.
And you're at the base still cut off?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a lot of air support.
And can we unpack that at least a little bit for a second? Like, so how does that happen?
Man, so we almost had, so there's like, part of this was like a river. There's a dry riverbed, IDP camp. We had the Euphrates. This side of the Euphrates was owned by the Russians, so that wasn't an evac route. Halfway between like north of Green Village, there's other parts of like northern Hajin that were open, that wasn't entirely clear. People were there, and then that side of the flot that wasn't part of that. It was only that part cut off real easy. And our buddy came in on the convoy and he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing your base." And we could see the convoy off in the distance, but just beyond that, like closer, was partner forces and everyone fighting it out. And then they just kind of like had to get turned around and came back 3 days later. Yeah, it was a fun 3 days.
It's a little saucy.
Oh, it was good. It was a good 3 days. Busy. We had a V-bid roll up one time. That was interesting.
Bike or vehicle?
It was a vehicle.
Uh-huh.
Man, and we had a javelin smashed it, like absolutely.
Was this part of your write-up? Was that the one you were fixing?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it got stuck in the sand anyway. Like, it was like 700 meters away. His first missile went off, and like a couple hundred meters away from us, just blew up almost parallel with our position. Like, it had malfunction. Never seen one malfunction like that before. I was like, oh man. So then, time they're getting another one up, I started shooting, and then another machine gunner of ours, Brown, opened up with the M2 on it as well. And I was shooting Ralphus. He was shooting. I want to say he was shooting API, and we didn't get any sympathetic dets off of it. And I was like, man, where's this buried? How low you got to shoot? And then,
and are you broadside or are you aiming at the block?
No,
what are you
I'm
at?
right on him.
Yeah.
Like literally direct there. I just plugged in between like window hole and like the front of the engine. I was kind of shooting back down. If maybe it was like towards the trunk, I was just putting a couple of different wears on the spread. I don't think I would have the trajectory on it, and I was actually like way better the way it turned out, because that second missile came off.
It didn't malfunction.
No, it was flawless. It was a catastrophic detonation. Like, we drove just past that on the way out, and like there's nothing resembled a car that was left there. It was crazy. I got a video that I'll show you. Like, it was good.
Yeah. So, man, that's wild, man. That's wild. Me, at least in my career, I didn't face SV bids, at least at close range, that were coming to me, but heard about them, read about them, know about them, and that's a scary threat.
They tested us a lot, though. I think it was interesting because we would get either random reports from locals, remember things all the time. There were SV bid factories around us. There were quote unquote, they would say this, and it did look like something out of Mad Max. I was waiting for Mel Gibson to pop up. I was going to give him one. But yeah, it was interesting. It looked like what you would think it would look like. It was very odd, very front heavy. But they used to tell us all the time one was coming. I think they would gauge our reaction, and depending on, see what you would do and, which ways they thought were fortified. And they honestly, I think it came from like the worst position. The one they, a lot of what they would have seen from their angle, we probably would have saw them out there observing from it. So that's the way they came in from. And it was like the worst possible route. We seen the furthest come in. So we kind of knew they were coming in. They had, at least two M2s on them. At least. So, yeah.
Poor decision. And do you think that it was the enemy that was releasing reports that they were going to hit you guys on a daily to test your reflexes? Is that what you're saying, or?
It was odd because I think some of it, we always had various intel saying that, like coming in there, whether it was from HUMIT, someone walking up to the gate, to the SDF, or coming from somewhere, that there was always a V-bid coming.
And were you co-located with the SDF, or was this?
They would probably be, if anything, in outer cordon. Like there was always like a separation between us and ISIS. They kind of defined the flot, so there'd be some. It depended, because our base fluctuated in size at times, and in some ways shape, because we would do different berms, and we would facilitate some of them, but they weren't it's too close. There's always, like a couple buildings between us.
And anybody that's not tracking, the SDF is the Syrian Democratic Forces, correct?
Yes.
And your ISIS, I don't think we have to kind of break that down. And when he's talking about the FLOT, that's the forward line of troops.
Correct.
Just to fill you in on some of the jargon, I know as we go to talk about it, if I was to stop every single time that there's an acronym, and to be honest with you, if you've watched some of the episodes, there's times that I don't know the acronym, and so I kind of have to kind of figure that out. So those are the ones that are in use right now, and just want to make that clear, and we can jump back into it. So interesting there. So you say that's 3 days before that convoy is able to get back to you guys, and in that 3 days, is that spicy the entire way? Like, are they coming down on you guys pretty hard?
It would always be like, most of the time it would kind of die down when the sun went down. But it was like sun up, it was going to happen. It'd be like a random order. We do a lot of counter battery, but it'd be, pretty much sun up to almost sundown pretty much is when it dwindled down.
And what ranges are these guys keeping on you when they're actually trying to decisively engage? They're real.
Nah, most of them it had to have been pretty far. I mean, probably decent far away. I mean, sometimes I think the closest position that had broke was like 700 or 800, but it would have been a decent range. I mean, some of them were closer if they were like using like the IDP camps. That was like the hard thing, because some of the assets we had would pick up where like things were being transmitted from, and so like sometimes that was like a radio or something, that whatever signal they're picking up a couple 100 meters away from. So I mean, aside from that, I'm not sure unless we had like POO site locations.
I mean, were you guys using like drone assets and things like that to be able to at least get aerial, like have ISR up?
Not to get into too big of like tactics. Our drone use specifically was limited in some cases. Some units were using them. Like the partner force would sometimes just shoot them down, or they would. We were told not to use them because of certain abilities that could be hacked in them.
Okay. And
information that could be taken. And then there were other times we used drones for FOing for fires. But.
And that's to my extent. We had like GBOSS capabilities and ISR capability, sometimes armed, sometimes not. But I know that for us, even in our battle rhythm, it was nice to be able, especially if we're closing on a group that's moving away from us, it was nice to be able to have that, eye upstairs to be like tracking, the bigger picture for us.
For the during this portion, we had a lot of air assets. I honestly, I don't think I've ever seen so much air in my life. Even the time before that, like you just see a C-130 come work the area, or get a couple fast movers come in, drop a couple JDAMs. Like, it was always something going on. Like it was always a spectacle. Like even before lead up, during that, like we got a lot of air. Like we had a lot. Got a good couple SIMOs on a building. Like it was nice. I was like, wow. So like realistically, we had everything kind of at our disposal. So.
And you calling? Are you able to control any of this, or you got?
No. There were people more eminently qualified than I am.
You had people in the detachment for that. I assume that's their specific expertise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, that's another great thing we can bring up and talk about later. But one of my big jabs at let's say big Marine Corps is that if you're going to have a squad fight and you're going to have ROEs in place that state that squad can't receive fires on their own authority, then you better make sure that the schools are available and the slots are filled to make sure that those squads have everything they need to be able to answer and release ordnance.
Right.
And because more than once that happened to us, whereas like because of the type of control or schooling or no schooling, you can't trust that I need fires kind of thing. And SF does not have that issue. They always have people for that.
I was surprised actually. I mean, one of the guys were sitting down. They were talking about like the targeting authority that you have as even at like some of their levels, like what a captain is capable of approving in relation to like what that would be approvable in other places. Like it would take like a lieutenant colonel or a colonel to approve, and this captains would approve missions like that. And I was like, what an amazing amount of trust and confidence they put in their officers.
For sure.
And that was like, whoa, I was like, this is different. Like that was quite cool sitting down and having that.
It's amazing. And then the question that I would have is how many thousands or more dollars are of education and training are in that one captain at that level to be able to have the authority. And I'm assuming that it's more than a level 1 JTAC course. I'm sure that.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot to it.
Beyond anything I've ever done. So
for sure. Yeah, but that gives them an incredible capability, and next to precision accuracy, to somebody that's their. Let's talk about that their sole purpose is to be good at that.
Right.
And
their specialization is really what that's their thing. That's what they're good at. That's what they know.
What an asset to have. Yeah, so that's awesome. And any more takeaways or key things, especially I'd like to maybe hear about this shot that we talked about at the beginning, when you're hitting a dude at a click plus is fucking impressive, bro. And you could call it luck.
It was luck.
You could call it luck all you want, but there's the luck only take you so far.
Luck took a lot on that one.
In a click plus
you
shot.
You still got to get it close.
Yeah.
Okay?
So build me up on
build the rest of it.
Yeah. Build me up on how this is even like what's as much as you can. What's going on contextually to even allow for this?
Yeah. So it was one of the days we were just taking a lot of IDF that day. Like a good amount. It was actually the day a good buddy of ours was wounded, Frazier, as long as another Marine from 3-4, and then later on another guy in the team, all from the same blast.
ID or?
No, it was a homemade 105 came down in the center and like smashed this part of the compound, like sent shrapnel 100 meters and hit the only kid that was taking cover. The one kid that was taking cover got hit. And then the other kid that got hit from 3-4 was also inside taking cover. And his like shoulders exposed in the window. And then the other guy was like literally like right next to it. I didn't think he made it out of it. And I was like, oh my God. So we're like, wow, all right. Nope. So it was that was an interesting one. Like everything just disappeared into the dust. And me and the other,
this is inside your cop.
Yeah, it's like right in the center. So then it was we'd already seen this guy kind of like bobbing back and forth. Looked like he was on a radio. We always got a lot of signals, I guess, from over there. So we'd seen him. It's that activity. It's like, all right, this guy's observing these impacts coming in. He's just on the other side. And then he jumped on a motorcycle and he started like dipping out. And my first shot, I already had him at, I had it ranged at 1100, and I shot. And then I was like, I saw it dip low as he was taking off. Well, I'd been looking at this area for like at least 5.5, 6 months at this time. I had a range card for it. I was like, I knew where he was going to be at the curve in the road, and I was like, okay. I got on there. I knew that was the only direction he was going to go.
Would you just go? You dope it on the curve?
Yeah, I knew where it was. I knew where to hold. I knew where I was going. And I was like, okay, that's the fine point. And luck, dude. Like,
what's the range at the curve?
Shot, like 1440. It's like pure luck. Just like smashed the side of it. Like my EOD tech, the dude that was spotting, was just like, holy shit.
Yeah. What'd you do?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh shit.
And that's a long enough shot. You ride your recoil all the way back and then watch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is like we were still taking incoming on our end.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, normally what we were doing was like we'd shoot, and then it was like, okay, you'd start hearing the fins, You know, you're like, it's getting close, and like you kind of like duck down for a second, and then it got to a point where it was like, instead of running back under like the awning or something, it's like, no, I'm just gonna like stay here, man. Like it's like, and like that like became kind of the mentality. It was just like, all right, here comes another one. The anti-aircraft stuff was interesting looking. Like it was like looked like little sparklers.
Really?
It was so cool looking. Yeah, we had like the ODAs, like Sergeant Major was there, and he was a he's a medic, so like we literally like medically we were pretty well off in terms of dudes that were experienced in treating stuff. So we lucked out there, but he was like, don't look directly at that shit. He's like it was because it was on prox. So he's like, man, it's like peppers out. Mm-hmm. It's gonna blind you. I was like, okay. So I like kind of like, okay, what?
What do you want me to do with my eyes?
I was like, this looks kind of cool, but yeah, man, that was all.
So walk me through. I'm not a sniper. I'm never claimed to be. I love guns. Love doing my part of things, you know, with a little M4. But walk me and the rest of the viewers, if you don't mind, through, you know, the mechanics of a shot like this. You know, the viewers aren't all snipers. I'm not a sniper, and you don't have to break down trigonometry. But as far as emotions, I know there's a lot of intimacy with snipers. Seemingly, to me, it seems like there would be intimacy more than, say, kicking a door in and then there's a chance contact that you're watching somebody, you're studying somebody. Sometimes, like you're saying, you're watching this area for 6 months. You get to know these people's routine. You get to know their rhythms.
That's helped us a couple times, yeah.
And you know, even in this situation now, you've watched it so much as to know, okay, boom, I'm a little short, and this comes to your field craft and your training and your experience, but then you know, boom, I know where he's going, I'm pushing back, got my hold, and there's so many fundamental blocks of making a shot to even possess enough accuracy to catch some luck and get a hit. You say it's luck. I would argue that there's a lot of skill involved as well.
By math, there's a lot of luck to that, just mathematically, because you got to do like 3 times, 14, and that would give you basically the radial spread in like feet of where, or in inches, sorry, of where that round could have went, and still be within just the mechanical capacity of that weapon system. Mm-hmm. So there's an insane amount of luck involved there. Okay,
but let's talk about the insane amount of skill that comes with it.
There not to get mathematical, I'm not going to talk anything formula related, but it's like there are formulas for movers, there are formulas for things you can do for that, and then a lot of it comes down to like just getting used to doing movers. And a lot of that's like thankful, like the types of quals we had when I was at, the basic course and the advanced course, like especially the advanced course beyond was like an amazing amount of movers. Like you're shooting sprinters and stuff. Like the quals were great. Mm-hmm. Never had, as many moving quals as that. And that was like, you got pretty good at it. And then you practice those things in your unit. My platoon sergeant taught me some cool things, like how to shoot movers. And then like, just came down to getting used to it and shot movers. So
check. And okay, so you said that shot, you're able to pull the trigger, rounds away, you ride the recoil back up, and can you see vapor trails, or you're just waiting on impact or no impact?
I caught splash of the Ralphus, went off, and then bikes down in dust cloud, like.
And then you're like,
I was
holy
dumbfounded.
Shit.
I was dumbfounded, and like, the dude was just like, oh my god.
The spotter.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it, and I was just like, oh my god. And then everything else after that was kind of blurry. Like a lot of stuff after that's blurry.
Yeah.
Like that was like the effects from like a lot of the concussive stuff. And then kind of took over after that, because like there's like parts even like the next day going into that VBID stuff, like everything after that was like there was like a lot of concussive stuff catching up.
For sure. for sure. And so how do you get out of this 3 days? Finally, they break back through to support you guys up? Like, how's the story in there?
There was, so I guess, I mean, we must have enough air and support coming in, because, I mean, our mortar room were just kicking ass. Those guys, there's an artillery detachment, mortars, like, man, everything was firing in different directions, like, literally. And then between that and the air support, I broke them back. The SDF got some control back in the area. We were able to get ground evac out, and they literally just like everything, you know, that's not tied down at first was like the plan. Like they're just trying to figure out routes to get us out. I mean, they were to get the wounded out. We had a helicopter come in at night, and they, other than that, they finally got a ground evac the next day out. We left, and then we, you know, that was us leaving. It was like the end of deployment.
That was it, huh?
Yeah. We got extended.
So it wasn't like you ripped out. You hauled ass out and.
That was part of our rip.
I mean, but people stay at the cop that you were ripping out of,
no,
or they just kind of.
They were as soon as we left there, they broke that down and left too.
Back.
That was the last of it.
Yeah.
They didn't stay. That was, I guess that was like a big risk assessment where they were like, oh my gosh, like. This could have ended. So I don't know. Like the big wigs weren't really too jazzed how that panned out. So I guess they cut that one down.
Yeah.
I think they kind of reinforced other places.
Well, when you're talking about TDG and something for you guys that are out there right now, and squad leaders, team leaders getting on here, run that TDG. Here you are. You're about to be evac'd, and you're cut off now for 3 days, and the enemy's going to hammer it down on you. When you talk about TDGs, you need to think about worst case scenario, and it's kind of like the Dakota Meyer story, right? He says he TDG'd, but he said even when trying to build the worst possible scenario to make these games on in my head, I could have never imagined something like this, and that's one of those situations that you're not thinking about happening. You're not thinking that that's going to come down, and I think, you know, your story especially is one great example of, you know, that's exactly why the fuck you think like that. You turn the map around. What would you do to inflict max pain, and start there? So that's awesome. So, hey, man, we're going to close this. I think we've been going on it for a hot minute now, and I appreciate it, man. I appreciate all the knowledge, and I'm sure the guys out there are going to. And, you know, Matt, you got anything first up? You're all set?
Nope, I'm good.
Matt's good. A lot of times, you know, at the end of the episode, I like to give you, the guests, a chance to speak to the hitters, speak to the guys right now that are out there that, are training up our peacetime Marines, and what do you got for them? What's a message to send out to them?
Never get comfortable. Never get comfortable where you're at, because, you know, the second you start relaxing your dreams, you start relaxing on what you what you're passionate about. But you being uncomfortable, that's part of growth. You grow from that, mentally and physically. You're not gonna really, exceed who you were yesterday if you just rest on those laurels. So just always, have a goal, have a path, and keep after it. You don't know what the next conflict's gonna be or when it's gonna be. And I used to tell these kids all the time, when I was in, 2-4, these kids are, we're going on your 31st MEU, and so, if you heard anything about the 31st MEU, both times, 2-4 went to Iraq, and 04 and 06, they were on the 31st MEU. I was like, guys, like, this is, it can switch so quickly. Do not get lost in the mentality that it's peacetime. Like, there's plenty of places, like, you start laxing, it's not the mentality to have.
Yeah, cliche, but complacency kills.
Right.
And we used to have those signs on every piece of HESCO barrier, to every, CP coming in, and to us it's almost funny walking in like, complacency kills, guys. It becomes kind of like the pun of every joke, but it's spot on. And
it's cliche for a reason, because it's true. Cliche
for a reason, yeah, and Murphy doesn't care, so he's going to throw it in there at you. Alex, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out and doing this, man. I look forward to more talks in the future, and And, you know, from the bottom of my heart, me and Matt, Choices Not Chances, everybody here, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been great.
All right, guys, thanks. And again, if you've seen something on this cast, anything throughout the way that you took away, something that needs to be shared with your compatriots, we ask you to do that. Push it out. Anybody that can take something away from it, so people helping people. Again, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Louisiana Gun Shop, your firearm headquarters, specializing in concealed carry guns, ammo, and training. You can get your Louisiana permit with us. Also a large selection of AR-15s, or if you are that build-it-yourself type of guy or gal, we have all the parts to build and customize your own AR-15. Glock, SIG, Taurus, Ruger. We have all the brands, both in the store or at LouisianaGunShop.com.
Not too far. You're marking a building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shot. That's money. Yeah.